My wife and I took a tour through Morocco and Egypt with the tour provider Exoticca to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary. This video will focus on the stops we made in Morocco. We will also share our experience with the tour operator. When we saw the pricing on this trip, we thought it was too good to be true and were skeptical of what the experience would be. I'm happy to report it was a good experience overall. It's going to seem like we are skimming over a lot of detail to keep this close to 5 minutes. However, detailed information on each of the stops is included in our companion videos, whose links can be found in the description below. Our tour started and ended in Marrakesh. Along the way, we had stops in Casablanca, Rabat, Fez, a luxury desert camp, which was my favorite, Erfoud, and Ouarzazate. On the trip, we saw beautiful sights like the Atlas Mountains, the Dades Valley, the gorges of Toja, and more. Be aware though, some of these you only drive through and maybe have a quick stop for pictures, like the Dades Valley. There's a lot of car time. Let's start with something we were a little concerned about, the hotels. In general, they were nice for the areas we were in, but they were kind of on the outside of the main tourist areas. I think this is one of the ways they keep the costs down but the quality up. In Marrakesh, we stayed at the Palm Plaza Marrakesh at the beginning and end of our trip. The hotel was near the airport and was actually very nice. It was close to a mall and nightclubs, and I felt safe walking around the area even after dark. The drawback is, it was further away from the Medina, and you will need to take a cab down to explore on your own. They do include a tour here, so you will see it, but it's worth spending some extra time. I really like seeing it lit up at night, as it gave it a completely different feel. In Fez, we stayed at Hotel Atlas Size Fez. It was not close to the main old town of Fez and not close to any restaurants. The food at the hotel was below par, not very good. When walking to explore in the evenings, this was the only place I felt uncomfortable, as there were very few women out and the men stared intently at my wife, who was dressed conservatively. The next place we stayed at was a luxury desert camp, Café du Sud. I cannot say enough about how awesome this part of the journey was. Our tent was nicer than most of the hotels we stayed in, and being out in the dunes of the Sahara Desert was amazing. I can't think of something more romantic than riding camels up into the dunes of the Sahara to watch the sunset, then relaxing by a fire being entertained by Bedouins. The next morning, the surreal experience continued as we hiked into the desert under the moonlight to watch the sun come up over the sand dunes. Zahra bin Youssef was a nice hotel in the town of Ouarzazate, but not near anything. It was basically tucked into a suburban neighborhood, and much of the area around it was under construction. Next, let's talk about the guides. When we were in towns on included excursions, they were hit or miss. In Marrakesh, the guide was kind of rude. He took each question I asked like a personal insult, so much so that I started asking a lot of questions just to annoy him. We actually ended the tour a little early so we could go explore more on our own. At Casbah's, we would sometimes get a guide while we were there. In one instance, the group had to split up as some were succumbing to stomach issues from the food, so I went and explored the Casbah at Ayat Ben Haddou on my own. It would have been nice to have a guide here. Despite going solo, it was pretty awesome. There were a lot of movies and TV shows shot here, including Gladiator, Prince of Persia, and Game of Thrones. Side note, my gear was a big hit in the Casbah market. I had a guy offer me a cool knife and what looked like a lamp for my Teva sandals. He would not let me rub the lamp to see if a genie popped out, so I turned him down. Another guy offered me a camel for my 360 camera, which I'm pretty sure would have been a good trade if I could have fit said camel in my suitcase. True stories. Our guide in Fez was great. We loved the history, seeing the shops where they make tiles and other ceramic work by hand. We did our part to support the local economy by paying probably too much for a nice ceramic tea set inlaid with silver that has now become one of my favorite shot glasses. The tour of the old town here was awesome. Navigating the more than 9,000 alleys in the old city was intense and involved a lot of walking through tight spaces. They showed us where they filmed part of the final Indiana Jones movie, took us to a leather tannery, which was super interesting and yet super smelly. Great tour. One of our favorite on the trip. FYI, you definitely need a guide for this. It's too easy to get lost, and there are cautionary stories of people getting led deep into the labyrinth of the city and then having to pay serious money to get out. The rest of the time, we were with our driver who spoke good English but didn't speak a lot. This was a bummer since you have extremely long stretches in the car with him. We were hoping for more history or information about the beautiful areas we were passing. He would answer questions but would not offer much. He did hint that we were supposed to have a guide, but the guide had an emergency and could not join us. I think that would have made a big difference. To summarize, the things we loved. The people we met along the way were all very welcoming and kind. The country is beautiful and exotic. We love going through the bazaars and seeing the handcrafts, the smell of the spices, the beautiful mosques, the crazy snake charmers. Okay, the snake charmers creep me out a little bit, but it's all part of an amazing experience. We love learning the history of the country. They are very proud of how accepting their country is of other cultures. They are especially proud of being a safe harbor for Jewish people during World War II and how their king bravely stood up to the Nazis and refused to hand over Jewish people, famously telling Hitler, "Morocco has no Jews, only Moroccans." The things we didn't love is that the guides were hit or miss on how good they were. The hotels were further away from the main attractions and in some cases, not near any restaurants, limiting your food options. Both of us got stomach bugs, despite serious efforts to avoid it. We spoke with multiple other travelers who had the same issue. The communication on flights to our next destination was severely lacking. We were told we would get all the information once in destination. We kept asking Exoticca and the tour provider, and they each kept pointing fingers at the other. Finally, the day before we were leaving, we forced them to get on the phone together and figure it out. We should not have been put in that position to be the go-between. Have I mentioned too much time in the car? Not enough time in really cool destinations. On some days you spent 8+ hours driving. Overall, I would definitely recommend this trip. It's not one I'm itching to do again, mainly because of the amount of time spent driving from place to place, but you can't really get around that. I'd definitely go back to Marrakesh and Fez and would do the desert camp again in a heartbeat. If you would like to see more, check out our companion tour videos of the cities we visited. Better yet, reach out and take advantage of our complimentary trip planning. Our suppliers like Exoticca match their online pricing for us, and it helps support this channel.
Thanks for checking out this episode of 5 Minute Review. If we've inspired you to travel and you're not already working with a travel professional, consider giving our team of experts an opportunity to help you plan your next great adventure. We don't charge for our planning services, and our suppliers match their online pricing. If you're enjoying our videos, give us a like below. Better yet, subscribe so you can stay up with all the latest content. Until we see you again, travel and be well.